Hey everyone, welcome to weekday coronavirus-driven mind stuff. My name is George Ortega, and this is episode number 15. We're recording it at 6:35 on Thursday. And again, for those of you, this is on Monday through Friday, channel 76 Optimum, 45 Verizon on White Plains Community Media. And Verizon also cable casts it to nearby communities like Scarsdale and Ardsley and a few others. So anyway, I hope you're having a good day. Let's see, what I want to talk about is the importance of distancing, as you're walking through town, and also I think more broadly, from a theological standpoint, what this distancing is about, at least spiritually, because let me present a hypothesis, okay? See if it makes sense. There are some people who flout the rules, who just don't like to play by the rules. They think they can get away with whatever. There are other people who, let's say they're big, they're bulky, and they like to push their, what's that expression? Push their weight around, not all big people are like that, of course, but some people are. And then there are people who are kind of arrogant, maybe they've had some success in life, so they'll walk close to a person and not acknowledge them. So, all right, so my theory is that, when times were the way they were before the coronavirus, people, I think, could get away with that more, which, in a way, it's kind of like being a jerk, right? It's like, not respecting other people's welfare, your own, your parents, or, it's just like being wrong, immoral, it's reckless. So I think that the theory is that God is using this coronavirus in a lot of ways, one of which is that those of us who are concerned with our health and with the health of others are getting more assertive, you know, and those who believe that rules don't apply with them are getting a serious lesson in the reality that they do, and that people will socially enforce these, I was going to say unwritten rules or laws, but actually it's a New York State law. You got to keep a safe distance from people. So just as a kind of like a suggestion, what I've found is if I say let's say there's somebody, I'm walking on the right side of a sidewalk and somebody's coming to my left and coming too close to me, I'll just start, hey, I'll say 6 feet, either loud enough for them to hear it or just at least they kind of understand what I'm saying, and motion them to the side. Now, yeah, naturally you want to do it civilly, with respect for them, but you need to wake them up. You want to wake them up. A lot of people are just walking around, just really disregarding the 6 feet law. And so I think, we're just pretty much, we're like the end of the beginning of this. I think I've heard someone say, and it's going to go on for weeks and weeks and into the spring and summer. And so I think, people who very rightly want to remain safe and healthy, and they want their loved ones and other people and themselves, people who are responsible and value life, are going to become more assertive with these other kinds of people who, again, think they can get away with whatever they want. And this isn't this isn't about race or color. It's I see people of all races and colors and ethnicities and backgrounds, doing the same thing. Um, yeah, so it's about everyone. And so that's the theory. That's, and I mean, I mean, like that is just like the tip of the iceberg, though, in terms of like if we want to go with the premise that God is using this coronavirus to really force us to do things, in our world that we should have been doing decades ago. Like, for example, ending factory farming, transitioning. I mean, this is something that like it's hard to believe that it's just a coincidence that in this time where like it's not apparent to many people now because they're thinking about how do I get through this, how do we get through this, but eventually as we're opening up the economy, the outside, people are going to realize that they do not ever want to go through this again. It's been way too disruptive. We're going to be spending $4 or $5 trillion in stimulus, who knows. And at that point, they're going to realize that, well, the only way, and let me tell you something, I would have prefaced this. Yesterday, I was on a call, on a Zoom call. I host, daily chats and a party at night, whatever starts at 9. And so like a couple of, first, this one woman from San Francisco joined us. And then she's like talking to us and we're talking about the coronavirus. And she said, hey, you want to know something? My roommate is an epidemiologist. So she asked us if we could, if her, she suggested that maybe, her friend could come on and answer questions. And she did that. And she was awesome. I mean, we asked her like, what, when can we expect the vaccine? She said about 1.5 years. What about the antibody testing? She said, they just are not sure yet. But anyway, so like, so we were talking about the coronavirus and, so, all right. So like back to this, idea that like, this is not, I don't think, a coincidence that we're in the midst of this time where people are going to like, they're not going to want to go through this again. And what the epidemiologist told me, I asked her like, what are the chances that we can develop a universal vaccine? And I know this sounds like, to anybody who knows the science, this might already sound really, out there or just like futuristic, maybe decades away. But I asked her, I said, what are the chances that we can develop a universal influenza vaccine that works against all strains of all influenzas? Because obviously that would be the gold standard. That's the holy grail of like, being safe from something like this. And she said, it's just not, she doesn't see it happening. And, I don't think she put a time frame in it, but I don't see it happening in like 10, 20 years at least. Because from what I've read, from what I understand, it's so difficult. Maybe I'm wrong. It'd be great if I was wrong on that. But anyway, so it seems that for the near future, the only way, and I've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it as long as I have to really get the point across, because this theme is like how God is kind of like using this to make us better people, and how this just wasn't a coincidence that like we're in this time right now where we need to be safe from pandemics. And 7 years ago, just 7 years ago, the answer to this emerged, this new technology called cultured meat. It's also called clean meat, in vitro meat, lab grown meat. It's basically a process where you take a cell from a cow or a pig or a chicken and grow it outside of the animal in a way that's sanitary, in a lab where a bat can't, with the conditions that exist in our factories, farms especially, but in all farms, are just not there. So in other words, like growing our meat in labs like this will protect us. It's the only means we have of protecting ourselves from a future pandemic. I mean, we will certainly have to, if we don't do this and a new one comes, we will have to fast track all the testing and the distancing and all these things that we should have been doing, long before we did them, so we wouldn't have gotten nearly this threatening and lethal. But think about it. Think about it. 7 years before this crisis hits us all, we have the answer to it. Now, of course, like if you haven't heard about it, because like both our media and our politicians are just not very bright. That's how more clearly can you describe that? In context, the profession, the brightest, the smartest are doctors, but like a politician, I mean, lawyers are pretty smart, but the average journalist, no, I'm sorry. They know how to write. They know how to weave a good yarn, tell a good story, whatever, but they're not the brightest people in the world. And neither are the people who run these newspapers, these news organizations. So, and the politicians, they're, the problem with politicians is that they're not really leaders, they're followers. Like, the vast majority of politicians, even if they knew of this new technologies, that it's our only chance of remaining pandemic free, they would, well, again, it's a matter of intelligence. They wouldn't understand that by coming out with something like this, it would be the right thing to do. It wouldn't be risky. It'd be, they're afraid of some backlash that people will say, oh, you're telling us we can't eat meat and we got to eat this stuff, so anyway, so think about it, and so let me just segue. So fine. So we're in this crisis and we know that we can't grow animals in farms anymore. Industrial farms, factory farms, family farms, that, if we're going to remain, and this is not just us, the entire world, so, so that's just part of it. And like, again, if that happened and we all became vegan, so much the better, because we'd be so much healthier and it'd be better for the planet. But unless that happens, I don't have all that confidence, not that much confidence that would happen anytime soon. It's like a lot to ask of people. So and again, I just want to make this point because it's important. At the level of funding that these 40 or 50 startups, that are working on clean meat are receiving, because basically they've already demonstrated they can make beef, pork, chicken, um, fish, shellfish, milk, eggs, all in a lab. They've already demonstrated they can do that. So the next step is scaling up so that they create the bioreactors, these huge bioreactors they're kind of like if you've ever gone into a micro brewing bar or something where they brew their own beer, they have this huge kind of like kettle where they keep the beer, whatever. That's similar, but like for this technology, these apparatuses don't exist. This machinery hasn't been invented yet, so that's one of the stages of development where we're at. But my main point is, if we're gonna get there, if we're gonna avoid waiting 10 years or longer, which is with the current state of funding, that's how long we would have to wait for these products to reach our supermarket shelves at competitive prices. That's like 10, 15 years of perhaps a little too much apprehension for most of us. I think we would much prefer to just in 2 or 3 years, as we're coming out of this completely, move into a world where we know this is never going to happen again. 99% plus, likelihood that it'll never happen again. So where we're at now is like the politicians, and if you're watching this, talk about it, talk to your friends. You know, if you know anybody who has contacts with a politician, get it to them. And actually, you know, like I have, oh, got a great idea. I used to like, during the campaigns, I used to like create a mailing list. I'd go to the campaign websites. You know, I'm a Democrat, so this was for the Democratic senators and House, you know, candidates for the next election. And I would email suggestions to them, you know, and a lot of times they were grateful, you know, that, you know, I had some good ideas that I shared with them. So, so with this, you know, I was asking you to get the word out. And before I go on, you know, basically we want to have 10, 20, 30 billion dollars, you know, channeled from these upcoming economic stimulus packages toward this new industry. Because if we're pumping that much money into this research, there's going to be many, many more researchers who are probably a grade or two above the level of expertise that the researchers working on lab-grown meat are now, because this is a kind of like a fringe new field. And I think some of the top talent are working on more, let's say, mainstream science. So if we get them involved, you know, the real, you know, the top of the field of the biologists and, you know, food technicians, whatever, we could have a pandemic-free world in 3-4 years. So yeah, so like I'm going to, you know, I'm going to compile a list. I mean, like I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know whether to send the newspapers. You know, I sent 500 newspapers, basically what I'm telling you, about almost 4 weeks ago now, I guess. And like I was thinking of either sending another 500 or sending a follow-up to these same 500. But I think it'll probably be more effective to start reaching out to the Democratic candidates and, you know, the Republicans. I mean, they're lost on this. They don't trust science. They're a great reason why we're in this mess, because, you know, they think that, you know, that they know, you know, the world. They think that they know that the climate can't change. We can't be causing climate change. They're so clueless, you know, in terms of like how our world works, how science explains everything. So obviously we can't expect the Republicans to be behind this. So this would be to Democrats. And so, yeah, so I should work on that. Okay, now this is cool. I'm gonna like, oh no, all right, so I was like, I was on my other computer with this glass, and like apparently the lighting was different when I moved the glass up to the, you know, to the shot, whatever. It turned translucent, and you can see the background behind it. It was very cool. I may actually do my next show at the computer so you could see that. Hopefully I can, you know, because it's a lot of it has to do with the lights and maybe the time of day, whatever. I don't know. But it's a very cool effect. And I hope you like my new set. That's pretty cool. Up here are my brothers and me. You know, you can hardly see it. This is like something that I use for a lamp. There's a lamp that I have here that I don't know if you can see it, but if I want to read whatever, it's on a mic stand, and I've got it clipped on there, whatever. I mean, yeah, I use it for reading once in a while. And all right, so what else? Because like, you know, I've talked about this and like about 9 minutes left. Um, at 7 o'clock, I'm scheduled to, through Meetup, to join some people from Japan mainly, you know, students, young people generally, who are practicing their English. So they created this room, and they're pretty much here every night for like 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. You know, they just like, they have a free account. So they, you know, a free account gives you 40 minutes of free time. So what happens is they open the room for 40 minutes, then they close it and reopen it again. So we could be on there for hours if we want. So anyway, it's 7 o'clock. That's in about, well, it's in about 5 minutes. I'll be a little late. That's no big deal. They have like 20, 30 people there, you know, sometimes. So, because this is going to take a little while, because after I close this, you know, it's got to like process the video, and that will take maybe 10, 15 minutes. But again, like this this event is like from 7 to 9, I believe. And then I've got to leave that group at 9 because I have to, start my own. Um, mine like, oh, let me tell you what happened last night. I mean, it was a great group, very positive. But like I was in my room last night from 9 p.m. till 5 in the morning. And like, so like by the time it came to be, let's say 11 to 2, there were only three of us. Then one guy who just kind of listens, but he's cool because like once in a while he comes in. But then after I think 2 or 3, there were only two of us. But I mean, I'm gonna like, I think tonight could like, and I didn't sleep all that much. I finally got maybe, I don't know, 3-4 hours sleep. I feel fine, I guess. But that is like, that's overdoing it. So like tonight, I'm gonna like maybe log off before 12, try to get some good sleep. And the other thing I did, this is something that's very cool that I don't do. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term verbringen. I think it's probably a Yiddish term. And basically, I'm Jewish. So like back in my 20s, back in the 80s, I attended a yeshiva in Morristown, New Jersey for 4 days. I could only last 4 days because like everything was in Hebrew. And like, I was about 10 years older than the rest of the, kids who were like I was about 28, they were like 18 or whatever. And they were like the only women in this whole place, it was a boys yeshiva or young men's, whatever, were the women in the cafeteria or whatever. And the place between between not hearing any English and like, just being such a segregated, reality, I just lasted 4 days. But anyway, what I want to say is like, in these yeshivas, they study hard. They study, day, night. And like what happens, like it's the same in colleges, universities, students study hard. Then over the weekend, they will drink a lot to kind of like de-stress from all the studying, all right? That's what they do. And, it's probably a self-medication, if they don't overdo it, of course. But so at these Fabringans, you have the rabbi, and they drink schnapps and vodka and, these hard liquors generally. And there were about 10 of us, in studying the Torah. This Torah is like the Bible, Jewish teaching. And we're studying Torah, getting totally blitzed on, I forget, what I was drinking, but like, so that's what they do. So that's what I did last night. I'm like, they were like, I was in with like, I guess there were 3 women and this other guy who again just listens. And at one point I asked him, listen, I feel like I'm feeling, because I had already had, I think, 2 of those 24-ounce, and I don't drink, so this was a lot. And it's amazing I didn't have a hangover or anything. I feel great today, but I'm still not going to drink today because that would be too much. But at anyway, like 2 24-ounce cans, and then like I asked the women, like, all right, listen, if I go across the street to get another can, will you guys stick around? But sometimes if I'm gone, they might leave, whatever. So they did. So anyway, so I drank another 24, and that's probably what explains and perhaps allowed me to stay up till 5 o'clock in the morning. And we were just talking politics. I mean, like after a while, the woman I was talking to happens to be an artist, and I'm an artist, and I think that's why we connected on that level. We were able to talk for hours like that. But like I mean, understandably, she was really concerned about losing her apartment because if she were to lose her job and all, or actually, I think she, I'm not sure what her circumstances are, but she's afraid of losing her apartment. And so like she's kind of like expressing these concerns to me, and I'm saying, listen, what's going to happen is what needs to happen. In other words, like people aren't going to lose their apartments. People who are out of work are going to find jobs, regardless of what Republicans, the rich corporations say. I kept on saying that, and then she finally got it, and that's the truth. I mean, but like we were going back and forth. She'd say, yeah, but, and I'd have pretty much the same answer. Um, but then I wanted to like switch over, like, hey, you know, we're both artists. How about let's talk about your life and my life, whatever. And that didn't happen. But anyways, it was a fun for bringing, you know, because, and I say it was for bringing because, like, you know, we weren't studying the Chumash, the first five books of the Bible, the Pentateuch, or the Tanakh, the basic Old Testament. You know, we were just like trying to figure out what would change, you know, as a result of this pandemic we're in now. And so it was a form of study. It just wasn't based on any texts. We were just like, you know, our information was, you know, our knowledge of society, knowledge of politics, knowledge of this coronavirus, you know. And then, you know, like basically like in Judaism, it's like everything is Torah. You know, the Torah is most essentially the first five books of the Bible also, you know. It's called the Chumash also, I guess. But, and I don't know why they have two things, whatever. But, but then, you know, the really Torah is like, it's also the Talmud, the oral tradition, and then it's also like, you know, or, you know, just the modern stuff, you know, modern developments in Judaism. But then in its most expansive meaning, you know, to study Torah is like you study reality, you study the world. So I think that's what we were like limited, of course, to this coronavirus thing. But all right, this has been a good show, I think. You know, it's a minute and 32 seconds left. And it's about 7 o'clock. So I'm wondering if I don't know if I should eat a little something before joining that group. Maybe, I don't know. I'll figure it out. But anyway, so like, I hope you guys are having a good day and distancing, you know, like, and learn to be assertive, you know, learn to keep people in check. People who are just being irresponsible, reckless with your health, with the health of people you care about, you know, find a way to civilly but assertively, you know, get them to be more aware and to distance and not think that no, you know, the rules don't apply to them. Okay. So 42 seconds, 41. Should I count it down? I mean, doesn't this backlog, it's like, I didn't think that I could do a backdrop because I was trying some different ones that they didn't work, but for whatever reason, this one works and it's very awesome. Some guy said it was like Europe, but I said, no, this looks very much like Asia, like the eastern end of Asia. I got to look at it more closely. I mean, he was pointing to something he thought was Italy, but no, that's not what Italy looks like, whatever. But it's a cool kind of like a shot, you know, and I guess it's like the Earth from maybe the moon, or no, it's probably from a satellite. All right, so I'm running out of time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.